Dave Dodson, the professor over at the Stanford School of Business, what he makes of this. You know, Dave, what's kind of interesting here is looking at, whether you get a bang for your buck in certain majors and whether it should be that easy to get loans in those majors. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's funny. I got to talk about my employer now, right? Listen, the Biden plan is a really sloppy response to an underlying market failure, and giving free tuition and Bernie Sanders' plan of making college free is only going to make the problem worse. Neil, we have to go back to why we have this problem. Since World War II, we have said as a culture, we want to help people pay for college, which is fine. But because there's not a market mechanism here, what happens is when the federal government throws money at students to help them pay for college, colleges just increase the rates. And in that respect, the Republicans have it exactly right. In fact, for every increase of college aid, 65 cents goes into increased tuition. So we're just fueling the beast, as it was said earlier. And until we're willing to go and address the market failure, it's just going to get worse and worse. And there are ways to solve it.
The one thing I think of is when you pick and choose the type of majors or concentration in studies that will give you a bang for the buck down the road. In other words, improve the likelihood of you paying back your loans. Business certainly is one of them, any of the math or the sciences, a couple of others. Yeah. But I'm wondering if this is maybe the way this is going, that we will sort of target the areas in the studies for which you'll get help, and you won't get any for areas that it doesn't look like you'll have any chance of earning money.
Yeah, so if you go to medical school, you go to law school, you go to business school where I work, yes, you're going to get quite a good return. But overall, it's been a lousy return because tuition's going up at a rate that's twice the rate that wages have gone up. And so if you're trying to get an English major, you're not going to get a good return on that. And I think increasingly, we're also going to see people shifting towards trade schools where you do get a return, whether it's going to nursing school, for example, where you get a great return on your investment.
Now, the rap against that is that then college then becomes the domain of the well-to-do or the fields of studies that are for the well-to-do. And I see what you're saying about, training and for electricians and plumbers, that sort of thing, but that this would go against that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that, Neil. Talk about how this money is getting pocketed into the universities. In 2005, college endowments were $220 billion. Today, they're over $500 billion. We're just transferring wealth from the taxpayers to college endowments, principally the top 20 schools. So I totally agree with you in that respect. Where the market failure needs to be addressed, Neil, is that the federal government is the largest buyer of school tuition. Of course, $100 billion in tuition they pay each year. And they're not using that market power to keep tuition rates down. And as far as I'm concerned, I think if the federal government is going to say, I'm going to pay about $7,000 per student in aid, I want something in return for the taxpayers, which is a little bit of control in the cost of tuition increases.
Yeah, and a slippery slope at that. Dave Dodson, Stanford School of Business. Thank you, Professor. Always good having you.